Good morning, Savannah. How's everybody this morning? This is the Vulnerable Community presented to you by A. Philip Randolph Institute. We are here to inform our community, our vulnerable community, of all everything that's going on and all the things that are happening around the city and county of Savannah, Georgia. This morning, we are glad to have with us our co-host, Reverend Alan Maynard. And we have for a guest this morning, Brother Brent Bailey, not Brent Bailey, Brent Bailey from Community Justice out of New Orleans, Louisiana. Without further ado, we're going to have Mr. Bailey introduce himself to you.
Sure. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Savannah. I am so happy to be here this morning. Really is a pleasure whenever Mr. Jerome Irwin or Reverend Alan Maynard and A. Philip Randolph give you this opportunity. And so I don't take this lightly. Again, as he said, my name is Brent Bailey. I'm coming all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana. Um, 504, shout out, woo woo. And I am with a national nonprofit, Community Justice, where we are working day in and day out to end gun violence in Black and Brown communities. And so I know we'll talk a lot more about it, but I'm really excited to be here. So, yeah.
Well, we're glad to have hosted you in the city of Savannah last week. Reverend Maynard, you want to introduce yourself?
Well, good morning. As everyone knows, I am Reverend Alan Maynard. I am the president of Racial Equality Justice in Savannah, Georgia. I am also a part of the A. Philip Randolph under the leadership of the great Jerome Irwin. Good morning to you, Mr. Brett.
All right. Well, with that being said, everybody's made the introductions. Brent, we called on you and you responded to our call. And in your response, you showed up about 2 weeks after we talked, which we are very commendable. Yeah, because we have the need to find out what needs to be done in the city, and we asking that we asked you for some help, and you gave us your interpretation of what went on. So we're gonna ask you to expound a little bit on what you found in the city of Savannah.
Sure. Yeah. Hey, let me say that, Savannah is a beautiful city. It reminds me a lot like home. The hospitality that was shown, just seeing so many different community members and everyone who may not have known me, but just because I was in the company of folks like yourself, right, showed so much warmth and gratitude for me being there. And so I definitely want to start off and say I appreciated that. And just from the few days that I was there was a lot of things that I saw that showed promise, but also showed places of disinvestment, to put it quite simply. And I think the biggest thing I took away from visiting Savannah was that there's so many people there who know each other, who trust each other, who knows your mama, or like we say back home, your mama and them, and really can build relationships and really do believe in community. And so that was one of the strongest things I saw. The things that I think were more alarming, right, as we talk about disinvestment, we're looking at some of the communities and some of the shapes that were the shape that they were in, and looking at um, the difference, and as you went to different districts, right? And so I think that's nothing new. We all are aware as everyday Black citizens in this country, and minoritized citizens, the disparities that live between us, from zip code to zip code. But for me, it was quite alarming, quite glaring, just how big the differences were from community to community.
We had also invited you to meet with some of our officials here in the city, and I think we got a good turnout to find out what they were looking forward to. We're, in fact, we're being joined right now by Alderwoman Bernetta Lanier.
Good
And
morning.
good morning,
Good morning, Queen.
Alderwoman.
Good
How
morning.
are you this morning?
All is well. How are you, gentlemen?
We're great. Thank you for asking.
Great.
We would just go ahead and introduce yourself, Alderwoman Lanier, so that everybody know who you are.
Well, good morning. I am Bernetta Lanier, Alderwoman of the 1st District here in the beautiful port city of Savannah, Georgia. And so we're in the northwest quadrant of the city. And most of the district you could consider to be marginalized, low wealth, but we have a pocket of middle class residents out in the highlands. And then we have Eastern Walk, where the one percenters are coming into Savannah, and they're not necessarily Savannians, but we do have new residents coming into the district that is a whole different demographic. So just to give you a little snapshot of what the 1st District looks like.
And the new wharf is where we did lunch and we saw the DA. Brett, that's where we saw the DA.
Awesome.
So that's that area.
So, Alderwoman Lanier, we had the meeting with you were one of the fortunate all the persons to have the meeting with Brother Brent. What was your take on Brother Brent?
I'm always encouraged and just really glad to see our young men and women who are taking this work on. And I say this work because when you get into this line of work where you're working for the community and you're trying to bring resources to people, it's a calling. It's more than just a career choice and you decide to go that route. It's a calling. And so from my generation to his generation, it's always wonderful to be able to listen and hear the voice of that generation and to be able to impart maybe some of our expertise, of our wisdom to these young people. But it's so encouraging to know that when we exit the stage from doing this type work, we feel like we'll be leaving this work in really great hands. So I was impressed by this young man and the work that and the way he has prepared himself to do this thankless work.
Thank you.
I agree so wholeheartedly because for a young 26-year-old male, he has showed great intuition in what he's doing, and he has it at heart.
Absolutely,
That's a good thing.
You have
That's
to.
what we need more of, and coming out of our younger people, because we need to leave a legacy, and we need to leave it in good hands. Brother Bailey, one of the things that we did, we rode around the different neighborhoods, and you saw the conditions of some of the neighborhoods. How does that compare to some of the other cities?
How does it compare? Well, I definitely can say that, again, there's a lot of similarities, right? And when I say that, I mean, when we look at where our population of Black folks are as it relates to, or what side of the city that they're on, and what type of economic opportunities are most closest to them. And I told you earlier that it reminded me a lot like home. As the son of a pastor, right? I'm familiar with having churches at each and every corner and every stop. And so that was something that first caught my attention. And I think the second thing I would say how it compares to other communities is, again, when we look at where are factories, where are the environmental effects that may be disproportionately affecting our community, where are they located and concentrated, right? And that was right in those communities that we visited. And so just the combination, right, where if we look historically at a lot of our Black communities across the country, we know we're going to have, right, a church. We know we're going to have a pastor, right? I saw a few housing projects, right? And then when I started looking at environmentally, what is the air quality? What is some of those different root causes, right? When we talk about all of the different things affecting our community, a lot of that was concentrated in a lot of the districts that we went to. And so when we think about, or when I think about some of the other cities I've been fortunate and blessed enough to visit, Savannah, whether you see it as a small city or not, is no different in some of the battles that we're fighting. And that just goes back to the importance of why we all need to be together. And that was one of the more beautiful things, to end on a high note, that I saw, is that so many elected officials, so many community members are all looking at the same thing each and every day. And so when we continue to put our heads together on these issues, we can continue moving forward.
Great.
Oh, again, good morning, everyone.
Yeah.
And as you said, when we're looking at what they call marginalized neighborhoods and communities, we're looking at mostly people who are Black and brown that look like me and you. When we're talking about bringing economic stability to communities such as that, we're never at the table. And the problem is when we get elected officials, such as Benetta Lanier, she brings something to the table. She brings a whole table with her. She goes ahead and bring the table, and all we have to do is bring the chairs. And so we need more elected officials that are more transparent when it comes to us in our community, when it comes to our children, because as you said, we're going to leave here. We need to pass the baton on. I had the pleasure of hanging out with Mr. Bailey. I forgot he was 26 years old. I mean, it just blew my mind how in tune he was, how his insight was, how educated he was on the matters. And I saw him, and I saw it in a different light. And I was like, listen, if we start getting more of our children, because we have a vision, and we have some young folks that we know that are ready. So that's when the entrepreneurship center would come in. So it'll be great for us. Yes. In our community, and we'll have all of these great these tools, so they can come out and they can be like Mr. Bailey. They can go ahead and say, listen, we're going to slave for our community. And so we applaud you, and we thank you. We thank both of you all for your work and your efforts in our community. And of course, we have to thank Mr. Jerome Irwin, the president of H. Philip Randolph. I mean, he goes to bat. I mean, he's out there trying to make sure that we're sitting at the table with the unions, and he's bridging the gap between the community and the unions. So, hey, we have that compartment. Like you say, everybody brings something different. And if we all bring in the sweet potato pies, we're going to get sick. But if everybody brings something different, we're going to have a whole mess, and we can all eat.
Beautifully said.
Absolutely. You said.
Go ahead.
The pastor said a couple of things, and so he said about we have a vision. Well, what I have found is that when I ran for office, I ran on several things. I was about changing the trajectory. I concentrate most on the greater West Side because that's where the poverty is concentrated. And if we could service the least of these, we know that the middle and the 1%ers are going to be all right. So I focus on there, not only because they are the least, the left, the lost. I focus on them because they're my people. That's Amen. My home. Those are my roots. I'm a fourth generation resident from this area who was prepared by my community and by my HBCUs that I attended, South Carolina State and Savannah State, and undergraduate and graduate school, and came back to my community to serve my community. So I know it was important for us to change the trajectory. Not only was I working in local government, understanding the system from the inside out, I lived in those areas. When they pointed to the map and talked about those people in those areas, they were talking about me and my people. So I came back to blow the horn and say, look, this, that, and the third is coming. And I knew that having certain policies in place was going to be the answer to what ailed us. There were solutions to our problems, but we had to have political will to implement certain policies to protect and provide and to bring resources for our people. So when you talk about that vision, what I found out from moving from a neighborhood president and an activist to a public administrator to serving on local government, that there's a clash of two visions. Because although we do have a vision of how we can change the trajectory from just totally being designated a place of poverty and low wealth, how we could change that because of our location and how rich our location was, we needed those policies. What I found in joining on council and becoming a leader, an elected leader, was that there was a clash of two visions. We have a vision for our posterity and our future, and they have a vision, the powers that be, to continue to use us as if we were slaves on a plantation, the same people who were slaving here on actual plantations that turned into municipal farms where we fed Savannah. And now, because our area being the proximity is to downtown, the river, to 560 and 95, being in a perfect location to grow wealth, they're trying to push us out of the land now and assume our equity, what we build up here. And they call it gentrification or forced displacement. But that can be solved if we implement certain policies. And we haven't had the political will to, or the people in place yet, to be able to bring those policies to the table and implement those policies to help out people.
Well, I would say that that was one of the reasons why I sought out and found Mr. Bailey, so that we could have some kind of guidance and the way to go and how to start combating this theory that they have that they can do us any kind of way. So, Brother Bailey, if you want to expound just a little bit on that for us.
Yeah. I would say, to touch on the Alderwoman's point, when we talk about coalition building, right? And one of the biggest things I said, and I still will continue saying, is everywhere that I've seen this work truly be effective, right? You all have all of the ingredients in Savannah. You have people who have relationships, you have the rapport. And I think that's critical, right, to have that established, because if we're talking about disrupting systems of oppression, if we're talking about really working intensively with youth, if we're talking about committing to systems level change over time, it's going to take that type of relationships to be established amongst one another. And so, again, going back to the coalition building, I've been blessed to look at cities like Baltimore, Newark, New Jersey, Baton Rouge, and I say those specific cities because some of those cities have been selected or were selected to be a part of the White House's coalition of cities that were essentially had got intensive training and support from all different types of federal partners across the country to build out this coalition ecosystem of public safety. And as we continue reimagining public safety, a lot of that is bringing more chairs to the table, making sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. So while historically we have looked at violence from the lens and safety perspective of just policing, we know that going forward, and especially in cities like Savannah, where you all are such great and have such camaraderie, if we have alderwomen, if we have the county commissioners, if we have not just elected officials, but you, Reverend Maynard, if you have all of the different faith-based communities, if you have the people who are doing the services such as tending to yards, blight removal, property, if you have people, economic development, and the business owners, if you have all those people at the table, you can begin looking at it not just as how do we hold the people who have committed crimes accountable, but how are we stopping and preventing people from committing those crimes, right? And so that's a big part of what we do at Community Justice, is making sure that we're not just talking about getting people off the street, but how are we making sure that people have homes, right? How are we making sure people have great quality of life? And so as we continue reimagining public safety, as we like to say it, across the country, what I implore and I encourage and see that you all are already doing is A, having the conversation, right? But then B, as we start talking about implementation, how are we truly addressing some of those root causes in those targeted or at-risk youth lives, right? And it's not just youth, right? But I say that to say, because a lot of times when we talk about this violence thing, people like to say, "This the youth, this the youth, this the youth." And so, just again, I really was impressed by all of the great work that you all and reaching out to me and just saying like, "Hey, we really want to be better at what we're doing. We want to learn more." And so, I think as we continue to work together and build this partnership, we want to start looking at how do we really bring all of those pieces together so that we can build that future that you all are deserve.
I agree with the neighborhood as ours. Uh, the Black and brown community is the majority, but we're still under control of the minority, and that is a big factor. We have been economically suppressed for a long time, and I think that, like you said, if we all sit down to the table, we come to the table, bring all the pieces to the table, and sit down to the table. I think that there's a way that we can work to make everything better. I had a phrase that I've been using for years now. If you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And we've been on the menu so long, we need a seat at the table now.
About that seat at the table. Also, if you're not at the table, you don't get fed. And a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so my approach to crime and the perception of crime is it's about economics to me. We have statistics and we have data that tells us that there is a relationship between crime and poverty. And that relationship, I contend, is very disproportionate. Because based on the crime that we actually have in Savannah, you would think that the poverty would be here. But the poverty is here in relation to the crime. So that tells me we have really good salt of the earth people because the poverty is way up here. So therefore the crime should be off the chart based on the amount of poverty that we have. We have a AA credit rating in Savannah. We have lots of money. We have a great reserve. We have good management of our finances in Savannah. But the reason we cannot meet the AAA rating is because of our poverty. Now, what I just found out recently, I think they've changed the formula some. So there's two ways now to get there. Either decrease the poverty or increase the reserve. And this government, this administration is focusing now on increasing the reserve. They're not even focusing. One time, I was like, okay, we got to get this poverty down. You all should focus on that so we could get this AAA, so we could have cheaper money, or our funding and finances could go further if we had the AAA. But we have the AA. And so their concentration now on increasing the reserve, because they're not thinking about the people and the personal aspect. The other thing is what I have focused on is getting our own table. And that means that we created a nonprofit that is a CDC, a Community Development Corporation. And CDCs are all about collaboration. So we have been meeting and bringing in stakeholders and building this, believe it or not, for the last 18 years. So now part of that, coming from that program, the Ivory Bay Wealth Creation Model for building personal and community wealth, is to create a microeconomy that is based on entrepreneurism and focus on our youth. The youth that I work with in community gardens and trash and cutting yards and all that we do, they understand the value of the dollar, and they need money for their needs and their wants, and just even to be able to supplement the income of their families. So we needed to work on making sure that they be able to become business owners, entrepreneurs. And we did not really have a true entrepreneurial push or economy in this city. And when I had my small business management and marketing company, I was hired by the city, contracted by the city in 2005 to write the curriculum for the Entrepreneur Center. So I got a lot of opportunity to go inside the Entrepreneur Center to understand what the city was offering and what they had going on. And there was a lot of potential there, but it was in a small building, a small operation on the east side of town. And now with Ivory Bay, we're trying to bring our entrepreneur center west. So now we have an opportunity with the Canal District, and it's already in the plan of the Canal District, to create an entrepreneur center and a community market on the west side. And that is so important, so we could be able to give our young people more options. We just don't want them on a track going straight to the car factory to work on the line to fill those spaces there, just as if they were going in on a plantation, because that's what it is. The feel is a very plantationist feel, that you all brought this Korean company here, and you expect for every moving body of every young person to go out there and be an employee in that plant. Now, don't get me wrong. For those who are looking for a job that has probably some stability and good pay, that's a good place to go. Get those skills and try to go out there and get the best job you could get. But for our other youth who understand creativity and building something and want to have a business and entrepreneurship, and to have the businesses that's going to serve all of those new residents who are moving to our community, someone has to have the businesses to sell them houses, to build houses, to do the cybersecurity, to cook that Gullah Geechee food, but we want it cooked in a healthy way because of our public health concerns. So this is the work that we have been doing to build these collaborations. I don't focus on the buyback of the guns and the destroying of the guns, and someone else is doing that, and they're doing a great job. My focus is on the economics and the entrepreneurism and trying to bring these young people into a safe space, a creative space where they can learn how to properly do business and build businesses and take their ideas from speaking this into manifesting into a business. So that's some of the work that we've been doing, working with some wonderfully smart young people, and we have just run into so many roadblocks, because you wouldn't believe who would be against this. We have people, right, elected people and the powers that be, who are against this because it may be against what they see, their vision of where and who our young people are.
Well, the woman,
hold on 1 second, y'all. We have to go to a commercial break. Go ahead, brother. All right, we're back, y'all. We have to take a commercial break every now and then.
Y'all getting fancy, and I like it.
Go ahead, brother. Man.
Good morning again. Alderwoman, I have a question for you. Because I want you to explain to our viewers and our listeners, because we're on the same team when it comes to land ownership. And when we're talking about home ownership and land ownership, we're talking about the investments not only in our community, but buying land in other communities so we can do an investment farm, of an investment garden, so we can feed ourselves. So these are some of the things I see. I just did research and found out that between 1920 and 2001, we used to have 14.5 million acres that were owned by Black. But now, and that's the size of, that would be, let's give you the area, that would be the size of West Virginia. That's how much land space that we used to own as a people. Now we have dwindled down to owning not even that much, the size of Rhode Island, and you know how small Rhode Island is. So now we have moved from land ownership to not owning anything. We have did that even here in the city of Savannah. We went from having multiple businesses and Black businesses to having 0.none. Would you like to speak on that as well, Alderwoman?
Yes, just quickly, I'll tell you this. For the last 30 years in Savannah, we've had Black leadership in City Hall. We've had mostly majority and supermajority city councils, and these are facts. In theory, political power is supposed to be able to convert into economic power, and we haven't done that. And the way you do that is through policies, implementing certain policies, because you can drive your investment and your resources to go into your economy in a fashion where it is cyclical. And you're talking about growing food and feeding ourselves. And we are also, through Ivory Bay Community Development Corporation, working on an agricultural program where we have community gardens, and we partner with Black farmers. And what we're looking to do is we have a farmers market, and we're going to move that market into the arena where we could take produce that we do not give away to the elderly and single moms, and we take that to our farmers market, and we sell those, and we put those funds back into the program. And what we propose is a cyclical economy. We produce what we use, and we use what we produce. And any overage, we'll be able to profit. And so this is what we could do. And with that, concentrating on economics from a political perspective and economics, we haven't done a good job. We were so elated as Black people to have a first Black male, a first Black female, a first this, a first that. They don't embarrass us. They look good. They could articulate. And we were happy with that. But we're at a different phase now because we haven't been able to change the poverty trajectory or the economics. We have to look. We can't really vote on skin color. We just can't. We have to vote on people who their policies and their ideas about community line up with yours. And we have to put people in there who's going to vote our best interest. We have been voting for people who have been clearly voting against our best interest. And
Mr. Bailey.
Now, but at this point, we need to change the trajectory. We got the pit, and we can't afford to continue the direction. We can't fix what's broken with the same people who made it broke. Thank you very much. But now we need to change it because in the last census, we lost 10,000 Black people in Savannah, 10,000. Those were homeowners. We are losing that, and that's important. So we have to realize that it's a science to this. We have to put people in it. We need 5 votes that will vote the Black people's best interest. And I'm saying the Black people because these are the low wealth people in our city. And we are a majority Black city. And we have probably 30-some% and probably higher poverty. And so we need to concentrate on policies that's going to be community beneficial. We need a community benefit strategic approach. For those last 30 years, we've had the same strategic plan for city council. And when I got elected, I looked at that and I said, this is the problem. If you continue to do the same thing, we're going to get the same results. We have to change our basic strategic plan to do a community benefit strategic approach that will give us a community benefits ordinance that will allow alliances, residents, citizens to enter into community benefits agreements that's going to bring community benefits to their neighborhoods, to their communities. And community benefits look like a whole myriad of things, including funding. You're talking to choose the stores that come to your community, daycares, to help for low wealth service workers, all kind of community benefits.
Alderwoman, I'm going to stop you right there for just a second, and I want to ask Mr. Bailey, how do you come into play and help us and bring our vision, the same vision that Alderwoman Lanier is talking about? How do you help us with community justice bring that vision in, sir?
Sure. And to just amplify what she's been saying, we too believe in the investment part of making sure that communities are sustainable as it relates to reducing violence. Again, economics is the importance, right? That's they say money is the root of all evil, but I think for us it's the beginning. And money may not bring you happiness, but it sure gives you options and choices. And so as it relates to investments and how we go about this process with our community partners is essentially it's helping you through the grant process, right? And diversifying your portfolio. I know people may get tired of me saying that. I told you all last week, but the importance of having different and multiple funding streams, right, for our nonprofit organizations out there who may be listening, who may be thinking, okay, I, as a person in the community or as an organization that I serve with, we do a lot of great work in Savannah area. We do help youth. We do provide jobs or resources, right? And so what we do is, as an organization, again, we don't come in and dictate or tell any city or anybody what to do, but we try to be that bridge that bridges you to those opportunities. And so with the funding opportunities, I want to say all different departments at the federal level, so Department of Education, Homeland Security, what the Biden administration did through the American Rescue Plan Act was ensure that there was funding available through those COVID relief dollars to go to violence prevention. And so because we are looking now at violence prevention from a public health perspective, we're also saying that if it's truly from a public health perspective, then we need to be looking at it from all different departments, right? How do we fund school interventions? How do we make sure that children, when they go to school, can have safe neighborhoods or safe schools? Or if there's investments need to be made with protecting them or to shore up the security of schools when it relates to violence? How are we making sure that in your community and your neighborhood, if there's ways that we can make that neighborhood safer? How are we investing in different grants in that way? Violence interruption as it relates to hospital-based violence prevention. How are we making sure that if someone or when someone gets shot, when they go to a hospital and they receive that care, you're not being interrogated, but you're actually being cared for beyond just the doctor. You're being asked about, are you safe to go back to the community you just came from? Do you need to be relocated? What is some of those different root causes that we want to discuss? And so that all takes funding, right, to create those different types of programs and to sustain whatever programs are already there. And so we look at it from a myriad of ways, again, like the Alderwoman said, of how can we truly address gun violence from each and every perspective? Because the violence that we see happening in our communities across this country and specifically within our community is not because people are inherently violent. And let me make that very
That's
clear.
right.
As narratives are being created and sustained around us being criminals or I forget the term that was used back in the day, but we're not inherently criminal. But the problems that have faced our community have systemically and historically been there all the time, continue that economic wealth gap continues to widen, right, day in and day out. And so, again, just to amplify, what we do at Community Justice is ensuring that those organizations, those people, those elected officials who truly want to invest in our people and make sure that the work that they're doing or the work that they want to see in the community gets done and that they have backing. So you can look at your donors from a philanthropic standpoint. What organizations in Georgia or in Savannah truly want to get involved, and how can they contribute to your organization? What grants are out there? Elected officials, if there's any type of earmarks or special projects that you want to fund, we want to make sure that our organizations who we partner with are aware of all of the different opportunities out there. So again, we can continue creating that ecosystem to prevent violence.
Okay, is there a list of resources that we can put out so they can tap into in this community? So, such as Ivory Bay, A. Philip Randolph. These is there a list that that's visible for us right now, so we can give it to the general public so they can have access to it?
as far as visible, I don't have it physically with me, but I can definitely tell you right now.
Okay.
Where I like to begin with any organization, or where we like to begin with any nonprofit, any person who's interested in, building the capacity of their organization through additional streams of funding. What I would say is, identify who are your elected officials, right? And something as simple as that may sound um, very confusing at times, but the reason I say that is, okay, do you know who your city council, your alderman, your county commissioner, do you know all those people, right? And I say that because they have access to funding. And so what we do is we try to go in, work one-on-one with those organizations, and then we have these different types of, okay, let's identify what are some of the things that you're doing as an organization, right? And so that's one way, looking through your elected officials. The next way is the different grants. And so depending on, again, what the organization or person is doing, whether they're working in schools, whether they work in the community, whether they want to work in technical assistance and building, a lot of the conversations that we talk about when we're talking about helping organizations, there is a technological gap. So, right, we know that some of these organizations may not be as savvy when it comes to that. So we have technical assistance. And so identifying where or what issue do you specifically want to help out with, and then we can go from there. And so that's where we start looking at those grants when I told you about Department of Education, Homeland Security, and all those different federal grants to help out. And so it really is tailored specifically to the person or individual. But I can tell you right now, if you're looking for those specific grants that I was talking about, I'm trying to think of the link, but essentially you can Google search Department of Education. We call it CVI-PI, but that basically stands for Community Violence Intervention and Prevention grants. And so if you just look those up, you can see and get those descriptions on where your organization best fits in.
Great, thank you again, Mr. Irwin. Can you tell us a little bit about the Building Futures that you were trying to implement for our youth in this community, please?
Well, Building Futures is a program that was the brainchild of me when I was the president of the Savannah Regional Central Labor Council. We went into the apprentice programs with the builders and trades unions, and it was not being advertised. Nobody knew about them. Only you had to be, it was part of the good old boy system. And so we went in and we told them, hey, this has got to change. You got to advertise this. It's a government funded thing, so you got to advertise it. And we went into the school system and we created a program called Building Futures. We took kids from two predominantly poverty-stricken schools. We took 12 kids and put them in the apprentice programs. And now all 12 of those kids have graduated from the apprentice programs and become journeymen. We do have 4 now in Detroit. We have several more in Texas, and we've got several down in Miami. So, but the program itself, it takes the kids that are in poverty and catapults them into the second class citizen, first class citizen. And our problem is we have to educate them on how to handle their money. Come on in, brother. We have to educate them on how to handle their money and how to be able to present themselves, and that's part of our program and the training of our students. Because if we don't train them how to handle their money, a person that's just coming into money and had never had money before, they go wild. They don't know what to do with it. But we have to train them how to invest their money. Number one is how to invest their money instead of throwing their money away, and how to dress properly for the job. So that's a part of it. And we're trying to work with the local Board of Education in order to get into the school system and get the kids prepared for those that are not going to college, to get them prepared so that they can have a life after high school.
Thank you again. Older woman, Lanier, I have another question for you, because I understand that Ivory Bay does a lot of what we call environmental justice, and in that area, Ivory Bay has taken the lead of helping and developing the youth to understand and to know what to look for. And these are some of the community justice. A. Philip Randolph. All of us are coming together, and we're trying to be green. So, can you tell us a little bit about how Ivory Bay has taken the lead to help with the environmental justice? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, my neighborhood where I live is ground zero for environmental justice in Savannah. We were the first neighborhood to establish an environmental committee because we're relocated. We're the only neighborhood on the west side that's north of Bay Street, and we pre-existed prior to the industry. And that's the thing. The industry has developed along the river and on this western edge of this corridor, and has grown up and basically is surpassing or smothering the residential area. So we have worked with some nonprofits and Romby House and others through the years, for the last 18 years, on our environmental issues. I want to add this in. So to our young brother Brent, money is not the root of all evil. The word tells us in Timothy 6:10 that the love of money is the root of all evil. But in Philippians 4:11, it tells you that money is a tool. And we need that tool that answers all things. Money is a tool that answers all things. And we have a lot of things that need to be answered. So we need that money. We're not going to apologize for it. We're not going to tell somebody, tell our people, don't talk about the money, don't talk about your income. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it from the rooftop, because that's where we need to talk about these things to close that wealth gap. So money is not the root of all evil. The love of money. We're not going to be driven. We just understand it's an old tool. It's just an old dirty piece of paper. But we're going to use the tool as it is, to invest in our communities. So we don't want people thinking that money, because you are trying to work to get people money, that is a tool that they need to build their lives, that something's wrong with you. No, we need that. So with what I've been working to do is to create a space where we all could come in and collaborate and do this work. I love the fact that this young man and other young people are taking the leadership, because we need to hear their voices, what this generation need, how do they want to proceed, so we can tie these two together. We need to support them. So what we're trying to do, my generation, and from my perspective, is to create a foundation. You all should not have to come behind us and create a foundation for building wealth and economics and generational wealth. We are responsible for building that foundation for you all. So when we exit the stage, you all could step on that firm foundation and build vertically. Just go up, just blow up. We don't know what you all going to do, but it's our responsibility as your parents and grandparents to create that foundation. And that's what we're doing. So we're working on a project with the church as our faith partner, to create a space for trades training, and where all of our organizations to come together to have space to meet and collaborate. We're going to have a music studio, and that's a recording studio just to attract the young people in the door. Because if they're going to use the recording studio, and Reverend Maynard and myself and a couple of other community leaders were the ones who came together with this concept to create this center. And since that time, 3 years ago, I've been working to find a space where we could come into and do this work. So when you come to town with your programs and to help us build larger alliances, we'll have a place where we can go in, that you have the youth there doing the construction trades training and the logistics technology, Gullah Geechee healthy cooking, and for a recording studio. And we should have a space right there near the Entrepreneur Center. So we're putting everything into this right now, not to make the decisions as to where we go, but the creation of these type structures is what's going to give us the strong foundation to change that trajectory and moving. We're at a very pivotal point in terms of closing the wealth gap, and to minimizing the crime, and to taking our young people and putting something in their hands that they can work with. And that's what we want to do. So you all, as the generation behind us, could decide where you want to go and take us from here. And as you look out for your elderly and look out for our babies, our children, and our grandchildren, you know what's best right now for those children. But we need to make sure that you have the money, that tool in your hand to, as we lay this foundation, so you all could build without having to worry about where you're getting your resources from. And that's the job that we're working right now.
Well, thank you again, older woman. To add to what you were saying, and when you were talking about money, the Bible also tells us in Ecclesiastes, money is necessary, and so we understand what brother Bailey was talking about, and we understand the logistics of using these things as tools to bring generational wealth and community wealth to us. Yeah. And thank you guys again for all your input.
All right. We have about 7 minutes left. Brother Bailey, would you like to give us a closing statement?
Sure. I'll say this again, and so it's been fabulous spending this time with you all to hear your thoughts and so much passion behind the work. I can feel it whenever I'm in your presence, and so thank you for all the work. I would say to those of you out there who may be young people, elder people, or somewhere in between, all I would say is just keep going. And the reason I say that, and the reason I can speak to that, is I know from a young person perspective how it feels at times to have the weight on your world, or the weight of the world on your shoulders, and to feel like, man, where do I go, or what decision do I make, or how do I, try to figure out some of the things in life. And so I know that from personal experiences and overcoming a lot of things in my own life, that it's important to just keep going each and every day. And for the people out there who are working to make our communities safer, who are making our communities healthier, hopeful, and making sure that the young people in the next generation thrive, I also tell you to keep going and don't get discouraged, no matter what you hear, right? Even those data and statistics that you hear that may sound or make you feel pessimistic about our communities, understand that you're doing the best that you can with what you have. And so if that was one thing I would say that has always helped me and kept me going in this work, is when I meet people like you, who we may not be as close or acquainted, but just in this little time, we share so much knowledge and imparted so much knowledge to each other. So that'll be my message to everyone.
Well, thank you again. And it's the same for you, older woman. What would be your last take? A few words of your last take on this.
I like to say that a state senator told me, said, you know what they say about you? And I said, what did they say about me? He said, they say you're in the way. So then, I thought about that, and I understand why they would think that, and that's okay. However, I went to the Georgia Congressional Black Caucus. They had their workshop and their event here, and I went there, and the main speaker was Jonathan Jackson, Jesse Jackson's son, and the topic of his speech was "Stay in the Way." And I thought that was so fitting, because the senator is saying, they say you're in the way. But here's this brother from Chicago coming and said, if you're in the way, stay in the way. So I felt encouraged with that. So I want to tell you all, stay in the way.
Amen.
And we all know about the incident that happened in Birmingham over the weekend.
Yeah.
And sometimes things happen that we don't plan, the best made plan, and some may look at it as unfortunate, but things happen for a reason, and sometimes civil disorder is a wake-up call. And we've experienced that through COVID, and through the last several years, we've had several wake-up calls that have made us have to rally. Unfortunately, it takes these type of interventions or these unfortunate situations to wake people up to rally around a cause. But once again, something happened on Saturday that made Black people sit up and maybe stiffen their back a little bit and said, this, in this strange kind of way, is a signal to show us that we have to work together. And so with that being in mind, Black women felt that in the last couple of decades. And the reason you find a plethora of Black women now in these leadership positions, we had to take off our aprons. we had to lay down our computers and leave our offices, and we had to step out here on these front lines because our babies were dying in the streets. Our children are being shot down, and we're not just going to stand here and allow our children to be slaughtered in these streets. You go to any animal and you try to attack their offspring and their babies, and they're going to attack you. So mothers stepped up and said, no more of this. We're going to change some things. We're going to run for office. And so you see all over these United States, women who are in these leadership roles, and that in itself was a wake-up call. And we're not apologizing for making people uncomfortable in these council chambers and in these spaces that we have been anointed and appointed to be in as leaders, because it comes a time where you're going to just have to do the right thing. You cannot sit on the fence, and you cannot choose. You can't choose two mammals. You're going to have to make a choice.
That's right.
Right now, you have to choose the right thing for the people of these lands. And I just want to thank you, gentlemen. And
thank you
for coming here, and you're just a joy to meet you. I imagine what my son would have been like had he lived. When my son went to the park one November the 2nd evening and asked the gentleman, take that back, and asked a homeless, intoxicated guy to leave the park with the gun because children were in the vicinity, and he thought he had turned because my son asked him, man, why don't you leave? Don't you see those children? And he emptied his gun on my son, and my son would have been 35 this year.
Oh my God.
And he had a mind like I'd never seen. He was blessed with the mind that he was a star child. And I thank God for having the opportunity for mothering him for 24 years. But I was trying to impart everything into him so I could sit back now and be in Africa, be in Ghana, and traveling in the islands, and he'll be doing this work with you guys. But I had to step back out on the scene so this wouldn't happen. Not my son was on the right trajectory, but how could we produce young men that could turn to their brother and empty a gun in their brother for no reason? And that is my focus. That is my focus. So we won't be a society that produce that type of individual. So thank you all for the opportunity to come and visit with you all on this morning.
Well, thank you.
Well, we thank you all for being with us today. As usual, we try to give the information to our vulnerable community and get them to understand what it is that needs to be done in the communities. And again, we thank you, Brother Brent. We thank you so much, brother, for coming all the way from New Orleans, Louisiana, to come over here and visit with us. Yeah. We thank you, Alderman Mayor, for joining us. In closing today, though, we do have a sad note that we want to talk about just for a second. Brother Irvin Thomas, he was a longtime police officer in the city of Savannah. He was like a bigger brother to us, and he passed away. So let us all keep his family in prayer. His wife was also state rep, and so we just want to keep that family in prayer. Otherwise, we're going to tell everyone to have a good weekend, a good week, and we will talk to everyone next week, Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock.
And remember, if you're not an agitator, you're not doing it right.
We see y'all.
Thank you, Grant.
Thank y'all.
Have a blessed one, guys.
Y'all be blessed.
Like this.